Jesus. Tonight we're going to look at the words from Luke, Luke chapter 9 and then Luke chapter 14. You have two sheets. One of those, you'll see it says the hard words at the top. That's the scripture. So let me read from Luke 9. Now, understand that Luke is the only one of the gospel writers who's not an apostle. And he's written his gospel on the basis of interviewing eyewitnesses. And so, in a real sense, Luke is trying to tell us the story of Jesus, and he's trying to help us understand things about what Jesus was teaching and doing. Okay? Luke 9, 57 to 62. As they were going along the road, someone said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." To another he said, "Follow me." But he said, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of God." Another said, "I will follow you, Lord, but let me first say farewell to those at my home." Jesus said to him, "No one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God." It sounds rather harsh of Jesus to say these things, but you got to understand, Jesus is using a teaching tool that was very common among Jewish rabbis called hyperbole. And hyperbole is simply overstating something or exaggerating it in order to make a point. Okay? Like, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse. That's hyperbole. I mean, you might eat some horse meat, but you couldn't eat a whole horse. So, what Jesus is doing here, and Luke's helping us to see, is that Jesus is using that kind of hyperbole to understand the radical nature of discipleship, following Jesus, being a Christian. Here, there are three would-be followers. The first would-be follower said, he pops up, "I'll go anywhere you want to go. Anywhere you want to go, I'll follow you." Well, Jesus looks into the guy's heart and realizes this guy's not doing it for the right purpose. He's in it for what he can get out of it. So notice how Jesus answers him. "But the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." In other words, you're not going to get any personal gain out of it. If that's what you're doing it for, wrong reason. Not about you. Not about you. It's about the kingdom of God. All right. The second would-be follower, Jesus said, "How about coming and follow me?" He said, "I'd love to, but I got to go bury my father. Let the dead bury their own dead. You come and follow me and preach the gospel." In the Jewish world, it was obligation that you honored your parents by looking after them, especially if they had gotten aged. You looked after them until they died. That was the welfare system of the day, Social Security system of the day. That's how it was done. This man's father was probably not dead, but was elderly and needed care. Okay? And so what he was saying was, "I'll follow you after my father dies." But Jesus said, "No, go and let the dead bury their dead." Sounds harsh. Then the third would-be follower said, "Well, I'll follow you, but let me go say goodbye to all my family at home." And Jesus offers a startling reply, "No one who puts their hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God."
In other words, you don't need to go back and try to take care of everything before you go.
No, it's not what he's saying. And if you know anything about plowing behind a mule, if you take your eyes off the point where you're going straight, the furrow's going to be crooked. So he's using an image from farming that anybody would know in that day and age identify with. He's not being cold and unfeeling here. He instead, as I said, is using this hyperbole to make the point and make it clear and unmistakable. Discipleship is radical and demanding, and therefore we must first understand how demanding and radical it is if we're going to follow it. Can't do it for personal gain. That's the first thing. Not about us. All these people out there who do it for personal gain, they're the people he talks about in another gospel when he said, when they get to Judgment Day, they're going to say, "But we did all this in your name." I don't know you. You did it for the wrong reason. Secondly, discipleship demands a commitment that requires it to be first in our lives. Okay? Got to be first priority. That doesn't mean that family doesn't matter. Does. It simply means we must never allow our devotion to discipleship to become anything other than a first priority. If you start putting stuff in front of it, after a while, it's second, it's third, it's fourth. Doesn't mean you stop loving your family, taking care of your family. It simply means you never let that commitment to discipleship waver. And in the second passage we're going to look at here, you'll see that comes even clearer in what Jesus says there. So, let's then move then to Luke 14, 25, 30. Now large crowds were traveling with him, and he turned and said to them, "Whoever comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even life itself, cannot be my disciple." Ouch! That sounds really hard. "Whoever does not carry the cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." Whoa. "For which of you intending to build a tower does not first sit down and estimate the cost to see whether or not he has enough to complete it?" By the way, the tower was used for grapes, the grape juice, also for the olives. So it had an agricultural purpose. It was important. Otherwise, when he's laid a foundation and he's not able to finish it, all who see it will begin to ridicule him, saying, "This fellow began to build and was not able to finish." Or what king going out to wage war against another king will not sit down first and consider whether he's able with 10,000 to oppose the one who comes against him with 20,000? If he cannot, then while the other is far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. So therefore, none of you can become my disciple if you do not give up all your possession. Again, the radical nature of discipleship. Once more, he uses hyperbole. Large crowd around him. Jesus takes advantage of teaching moments. And one of the things you see in Luke's gospel, it's really obvious in Luke's gospel, though you'll see it in the others as well, is that almost all of the things that Jesus teaches happen in encounter with other people. Jesus seizing on these opportunities, we call them teaching moments. So, sometimes it's somebody who asks him a question. Sometimes it's and he's in a certain place, and somebody makes an observation, like the disciples. Look at how beautiful the stones are at the temple. He seizes on all those moments to be teaching moments. Jesus says you cannot be a disciple unless you hate your parents, your spouse, your children, your siblings, and even life itself. He don't leave anything out there, does he? The Greek word for hate here is missio, and it really means to love less. Again, talking about priority. By the way, that's the same thing we mean whenever people get married and we say, "Do you promise to forsake all others, keep thee only unto her, only unto him, so long as you both shall live?" I do. Didn't say when we asked that. Now, you going to stop loving your mama and your daddy and stop loving your brothers and sisters? No. You're just not going to love them the same way you're going to love your spouse. You're going to be committed to your spouse in a different way. So, it's the same idea. Same idea. Unless discipleship is a priority, you will not be committed to it, at least not very long, because it's not easy. It's demanding. Christian faith divided families in that culture and has divided them ever since because not all family members are believers. You may have people in your family who are not devout believers. Don't go to church, or at least don't go very often, or maybe don't believe at all, or maybe they have lots of questions and doubts, don't know what they believe. Every family has to deal with those kind of things. Or you may have some that are outright atheists, as we do in our family. So Jesus is saying this is not an easy way of life. You have to know what you're getting yourself into. What does Jesus do when he wants to make a point come alive, make it vivid? He tells a story. None of you would go out to build a tower for your olives or your grapes to drain down into the vat unless you first went out and found out what's going to cost to do it, because you don't want to get started and have it half done and everybody's running around wagging their tongues making fun of you saying, "Look, fool, build half a tower." Or, he said, any king that's about to have a battle will gauge whether or not he can defeat his enemy, and if not, he'll work towards a peaceful solution. Because if you can't win, it's destruction. It's foolish to enter into one you can't win. Both of these examples illustrate the importance of counting the cost of being a disciple and therefore being realistic. Then he says, you got to take up a cross. That's about sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice? Because the cross is a symbol of sacrifice. Discipleship is a sacrificial and intentional way of living. The disciples would learn this And since that time, Christians have learned this in many different ways. Many parts of the world today, Christians are dying. In our secular culture, we are seeing a culture that's becoming more and more hostile and adversarial toward the Christian faith. So, this intentional sacrificial way of life is going to become more acute in our secular culture, increasingly so as days go by, because of secular humanism. Humanism is a philosophy that says that humans are the center of the universe. Now, Christianity is the opposite. God is the center of the universe. You see the difference. And so, in secular humanism, we don't need anything but human reason to resolve all of our problems. And human reason becomes the ultimate source of our morality, our understanding of right and wrong. The only problem with that is that humans in one culture can reason something is right, in another culture they reason it's wrong. Which one's right? Can't have it both ways, but secular humans don't accept that reality. So, for example, there are people in many parts of the world, based on human reason, who've reasoned it's all right to put people in slavery. It's all right to kill people. Or it's all right to marry children. Not wrong in their beliefs, in their culture. But that's a human reasoned issue. Okay? That's a very dangerous thing. All right. Also, secular humanists are often fond of saying, all truth is relative. You know what's wrong with that statement? Well, if that statement is true, if all truth is relative, that statement's not true. It makes itself untrue by its very statement. If truth is relative, then there's no absolute truth. Therefore, that statement can't be true. Or if you are arguing, on the other hand, this statement is absolutely true, you just posited an absolute truth to tell me there's no such thing as absolute. Because if all truth is relative, it can't be absolute. So philosophically, that statement has all kinds of problems. But you hear it more and more these days in a secular humanist culture. And that's why Christianity becomes a problem, because Christianity teaches that there is an absolute moral law, demand, in the lives of people. We're to love God, we're to love our neighbor. So, and human reason can't get by with the stuff they want to get by with.
But morally, they think they can.
They think they can. So, the Bible says, Christian morality tells us that life begins at conception, but humans will reason it doesn't. It begins whenever we decide it's a viable life. That can be 8 months into the pregnancy, it can be 3 days after the child's born. That's human reason. So you said we can arbitrarily put that anywhere we want to. You may have just read the story of little Alfie over in England, who was born with a severe congenital problem. You know, the Vatican offered to fly him free to Italy. Doctors there were willing to treat the child, but England would not let them do it. The child was virtually condemned to death, and he died at home with his parents. When they took him off the respirator, by the way, they thought he would die instantly, and he didn't. That they wouldn't let his parents in the room when they did that. But the lawyer was in there, and the lawyer informed the doctors that the judge told you to give him the shot to put him to sleep, in other words, euthanize him, but you didn't give it to him within the time frame the judge set. Now you can't do it. So they ended up letting him come home and die at home.
Wow.
So that's a culture that reasons that we have the right to decide what is viable life, what is not viable life. By the way, there are many cultures who've already ruled, who've already reasoned. That can be on the other end as well. You're 75, you can't hold a job anymore. That's right. Maybe you're beginning to have the first stages of dementia. Go ahead and take them out. And it is done. Believe me. Denmark was one of the first countries to make that legal. So, you know, they just give you a big hit of morphine. And you know morphine paralyzes your breathing. You can't breathe. You go to sleep and die. So, what I don't understand, it brings up a question I don't understand. They can give you morphine, put you to sleep, people die from overdose of morphine, but they can't seem to figure out how to kill people in the death chamber with medicine. They say it's cruel and unusual because they don't go to sleep and they don't die. They can put me to sleep instantly to have a colonoscopy, but they can't put them to sleep in the death chamber. I don't understand it. Something just don't add up there for me. So, but anyway, human reason. That's the issue. When you and I see the sacrificial demand of the Christian faith in a secular world, my point is it will become more and more evident to us. How much are we willing to sacrifice in order to be a Christian? It may mean, if you're a business person, that you'll get sued. That's happened in this country. Already happened. The bakers, florists, printers who wouldn't print wedding invitation. So, it's a possibility, and a real possibility, as we're seeing, that this kind of thing can happen. So, sacrificial. Another way it's sacrificial is, it may mean that you give of your time or your talents to do this rather than pursue some secular field where you can make a lot more money. If anybody understands sacrifice, it's teachers working in a classroom, teacher's aide, because they're not making big money, and they go to school, they get an education, they learn, and they spend their time with kids. I think there was about 18,000 of them marched on Raleigh today. I hope they got heard.
30,000.
30,000? Good.
Wow.
I hope they got heard, and they would have stayed there till they listened to them and make education a first priority.
And then they need to send the parents down there.
Well, I think it ought to be a law. In fact, I said this to 2 or 3 representatives of mine. Make it a law that every parent, if you have a child in public school, has to spend at least one day during the year at school with your child in a classroom.
And don't let the child know when it is.
No. They set up a schedule, and you come in. You don't want all the parents there at the same time, but one at a time.
A parent could go, but the child didn't even know the parent was there. They
Right.
had them in
Yeah.
some location where
Some schools did that on their own. Some county systems did that on their own. And, and some schools encourage parent volunteers. You come in and spend a day and, help out in the classroom. But that really ought to be a requirement of things that ought to be done. The other problem is that they've taken a big chunk, I don't know if you know this or not, they've taken a big chunk of money out of the education budget to use for the vouchers. And while I'm not 100% against the vouchers, there are issues with it. The problem is you can't take that money out of the education budget. You need to replace that money. Take that money from somewhere else if you're going to do that. But don't take it out.
What's happened to the lottery money?
Well, the problem with the lottery money was that the biggest chunk of it was going toward building buildings and paying off bonds where they were building buildings.
Schools?
Yeah, school buildings. They learned some years back that was a bad formula because they weren't putting enough money into the general fund to pay salaries. So they changed the formula, started putting more in there. The idea originally was to use almost all that money for teacher salaries, and the rest would go toward supplemental, like teachers' aides and supplies, all kind of things. But they got hung up in it, got conned into doing it for buildings. Well, once you build school buildings, you got to have the money in the budget to run them.
You got to keep money.
And there's just a few people made that change, probably.
It was a small number of people.
Just like sitting right
small
here.
Number of people
made the change to do that.
And all they're doing now is they're having a war over in Raleigh over what they're going to do and where they're going to do it. And
How long now has the lottery been in effect?
Lottery was passed back in the early 2000s. I think it was like 2003 or 2004. I told her when Senator Tony Rand went on television and said, we will have the lottery in North Carolina within 2 years. I said, we'll have a lottery. He was the most powerful man in Raleigh. He had more power than the governor because he was in charge of all the money. If you wanted any money from state coffers, you went to Tony Rand. He was from Fayetteville, and we called him Boss Hogg. Remember Boss Hogg from the? Well, he was Boss Hogg. If you ever met him, he was just that laid back. He was easygoing. He's a lawyer. He was an attorney, a wealthy attorney, but he had that laid back kind of personality and style. I met him, talked to him several times. He got rich because he did the legal work for a company that started lithotropsy. You know what lithotropsy? Where they bust the stones in your kidney. He was the lawyer to help get that first lithotropsy program going, and so he was an investor in it. And made money. There was no telling what that dude was worth. But anyway, he's the one that got that in. But the idea was that the lottery would be additional money, not in place of. But what they do, they reduce the amount in the general budget as the lottery money started coming in. And that's biting off your nose to spite your face. That money's got to stay there. So, and as you know, with North Carolina's population growing, by 1 million people every 10 years, about 1 million every 10 years. A lot of kids coming into the schools. That means more schools, more teachers, obviously, more money. So, and I got very frustrated when they made teachers' aides one of the political pawns they would use. They cut out money for teachers' aides. That was a mistake. Because you can't, I don't care how good a teacher is, and I love teachers, but I don't care how good a teacher is, she cannot manage, or he is not going to manage 25, 28 first and second graders by themselves. They got to have some teachers' aides there to help. And they can't give individual attention to the ones that need specialized attention.
Well, how did we used to do it?
They used to when we went to school. Everybody was quiet.
But
I don't remember.
But the kids came from a different environment than where they come from.
That's what's happened right
And they had
They
reinforcement.
told you to shut up. You shut up.
You better. And you had reinforcement at home.
And it seemed like everybody learned. You read in them little circles.
You could paddle.
Yeah.
You could do discipline. But now.
But I don't even remember having to do that for a lot of kids.
No.
I mean, it's just,
Um,
I don't know. It's just a whole new world out there.
We didn't go but
I don't understand.
Honeycutt's office but one time. Remember this?
oh man,
You kind of look
The
shaped
school,
up.
the school supplies.
let them sit you out the hall all
Is
day.
he speaking from experience?
Well, sure.
Maggie's mama was a teacher.
B.O. Jones.
I'm telling you right now, didn't you? Your mother was a teacher.
She did some
Everybody
wax.
told on it. They all told on him.
But it's now like with supplies and things, they don't have enough things to work.
And textbooks is one of the most expensive parts of education. Because textbook publishers inflate the cost. That's how they make money. So, $25 book costs $60 when school tries to buy them.
Don't make sense.
When Jesus said in another place, when he was talking about discipleship, and he said, you can't serve two masters. Remember that? You will love one, hate the other. Can't serve God and money. That's exactly what he's saying here. You can only be committed to something with do one thing at the time. If you commit yourself, if you got all these different commitments, you're trying to do too many things at once. Well, you know what happens. You don't do any of them well.
Good.
That's right. And you end up burning yourself out, and you're in big trouble. So if you commit yourself to discipleship, that takes first place. But you still are committed in loving to your family. You're still going to do those things. You're going to do your work. If your work is secular work, you're going to do it, but you're going to do it as a Christian in that environment. You're going to live out your Christian faith in the job you do, whether you're a teacher or a nurse or whatever it is you happen to be doing, a construction worker or businessman. And many people did that and modeled it well for us. J.C. Penney lived out his faith and his work as a businessman. And there had been others. Truett Cathy, who owned Chick-fil-A, did that. So there are ways to do it. And that's what he's talking about, is about taking it into that world so that you don't say, well, I can't do that. How many times did they tell Truett Cathy that Chick-fil-A would go under if they weren't open on Sunday?
Several times.
Hobby Lobby.
Still.
Same way. Hobby Lobby, same way. So what he's talking about, if you commit yourself and do it right, God will bless it. Mm-hmm. That's what they forget with these things. That if God's blessing something, that one day is not going to hurt. And they make lots and lots and lots of money. So,
Now this week it's NASCAR that's having trouble.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're struggling, and lots of businesses are. So
you used to call it blue law, where you nothing open on Sunday, and then they went to nothing until 1 or 2 o'clock. Now they want everything open early.
Oh, and start.
Well,
You got to start drinking for breakfast.
The blue law came in that allowed stores to open only for emergencies like bread and milk, medicine.
Kids have to play ball on Sunday
Right.
morning.
But
That's very important.
and
And
then they
Johnny,
they went away from the blue law. They were open, but they could only be open after 1 o'clock. Then they couldn't sell beer and wine until after 1 o'clock. And now it's just another day of the week in terms of retail
little
business.
Johnny, he's going to be a NFL player, so we got to get him started when he's 3.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking about playing.
Burned out when he could be a good player.
When he could be set.
Yeah.
Talking about playing ball on Sunday when we were in coach. That in the early '80s, that's when church softball was just exploding everywhere. And we had some guys from our church that were on the coach team, and they came to me and said, "Preacher, we got a dilemma." I said, "What is it?" They said, "Well, we're going to the tournament, and the problem is our game is scheduled for 10:30 on a Sunday morning, and so we don't know what to do." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to figure that out, you know." And they said, "Okay." So they went to the game. Well, they came back to see
It didn't
me.
take them long to figure it out.
They came back to see me. Yeah, I knew what they were going to do, so I wasn't trying to heap
They
guilt
were
on
sort
them.
of wanting your blessing was what it was.
But I wasn't going to bless it or heap guilt on them either. But they came back to me on Monday when they come walking in my office. I could tell
they lost.
by the look on their face that something was not right. They sat down and they said, "You'll never believe what happened." I said, "What?" "Well, we got there and we got ready. The game was supposed to start at 10:30. Our opponents weren't there. And they weren't there at 10:45, and they weren't there at 11. And one of the officials was late getting there. We couldn't start the game without the umpire. Said finally the other team got there and the umpire got there and said, 'Where have y'all been?' They said, 'We stopped and went to church.'
Good for them.
And they both looked at me and said, 'We'll never miss church for a softball game.'"
And who won that softball game?
The other team.
So they went to church.
Yeah. And that's what he said. He said they won. I said, "I'm sorry." He said, "Well, probably because they went to church." But it's true. Again, you know, that was one of the things about Sabbath was that kind of discipline commitment, because you know people didn't work on you. You weren't allowed to work on the Sabbath. There was a time when you didn't do
That's
that.
sort of what
You
you're
rested.
talking about here.
Didn't do nothing else.
That's right. And the Old Testament talks about the land resting every 7 years. You let the land rest. Everything was supposed to have that season of rest. Of Sabbath. And
Supposed
so,
to let a field go
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let it
And
rest.
now they don't even let the thing get over it. And they poison it out and plant it again.
Or no-till. They go right behind the grain with no-till with beans.
And
stuff.
honest to goodness, it's not good for us.
Mm-mm.
It can't be.
Well, it means they're having to put a lot of stuff in the soil to replenish it.
Well, there's so much
So
chaos in
some
the
places
world.
they use a lot
They're
of.
putting a lot of poison to kill it too.
Well,
Weeds don't kill too good.
No, a lot of the stuff they use for that, the systemics are bad, and now they've developed the systemic pesticides, and the problem with that is it's making the nectar poison, and that's what's killing a lot of the pollinating insects. It's working bad on the honeybees. So they're trying to get Monsanto and Bayer and these other companies to reformulate that so it's not toxic to them. But nobody thought about that when they were formulating this stuff. You know, that's the problem. Things look so good on paper, but when we start doing it in reality, you know, like all those idiots in Florida thought it would be neat to have a boa constrictor or a python as a pet till they got too big. They turn them loose. Now they're having to hunt them and kill them in the Everglades. So, you know, we mess with the ecosystem. God had everything in balance. God had everything in balance. We mess with the ecosystem and we screw it up. So, and we learn lessons the hard way. Just terribly learn lessons the hard way.
Wonder if he's really. I bet he's so disappointed in us.
I think he is. I think he laughs sometimes at our folly, our foolishness. Again, that's part of our humanism. We think we're smarter than God. You know.
Can't you just see God up there saying, "How stupid"?
Just shaking his head. When will they ever learn?
Oh, foolish one. Mm-hmm. Oh, foolish one. Yes, but and that's and that's the problem in a humanistic culture. Number one, we have to learn lessons the hard way. Then number two, we don't want to accept it, that we did it. We don't want to take responsibility for what we've done. We create the disaster. Nobody wants to believe it. When they exploded the first atomic bomb in the desert out there, Los Alamos, Robert Oppenheimer, who was one of the chief physicists on that project, made the statement when he saw the impact of that, the size and impact of that explosion. He turned to his colleagues and said, "We have become death. We have become death." So, and by the way, he was so scared of what he was doing. This is now known. It wasn't known for a long time. He was so scared of what he was doing. He was actually one of his assistants. He was doing it through his assistant. Was giving information to the Russians. That's how they were able to develop their atomic bomb. But nobody realized it was doing it. They were so good at what they were doing. But it's now been proven that did happen. So, and the reason we know that is Russian defectors that came to the United States.
Seemed like I seen something on the History Channel on
History
that.
Channel had a thing on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they talked about it. Yeah. But several people have written investigative reported books on those things. And
Nothing's a secret. You cannot keep a secret. If more than one person knows it, it's not.
It's not going to be a secret. It's not going to be a secret. So, and you don't have to. You don't. Now we damage people with lies. They don't have to be the truth. More people are destroyed by lies than the truth every day. So, it's terrible, and we don't think about that. So.
I think a lot of them destroyed with rumors too.
Rumors destroy a lot of people.
Mostly the rumors is not true.
Yeah.
So that'd be a lie, I guess. But them
It is. Rumors
them
are
rumors
lies.
get blowed out of way out.
Oh yeah.
The tongue is the worst part of the body.
Wow.
In one of the case studies that we studied in dealing with conflict and issues in the local church, and all these were true stories that actually happened. Names were changed, of course, but one of the ones that I remember that just really blew my socks off was this pastor was visiting with a lady in his church who had been sick, a grandma who had been sick, and her daughter came in with her granddaughter. Her granddaughter was starting to take dance lessons and had on her dance outfit so grandma could see it. So she went back in the bedroom, of course, and put on her dance outfit and came in, and she twirled around in front of grandma. You know how kids are, how happy they are. And grandma was doing an eye, and then her mom was doing an eye. And the next door neighbor had walked over and was standing there, and the minister that she twirled around in front of the minister, she said, "What do you think, preacher, of my dance outfit?" He said, "I think that is a very nice outfit, a very sweet outfit." And that was all he said. Well, the neighbor was telling somebody about it, who told somebody about it, and next thing you know, the minister's brought up before the church for telling a little girl how sexy she looked in her dance outfit. Now, he had 4 witnesses that he didn't say that.
Right.
And it had not been for those 4 witnesses, though, he would have been destroyed. But the grandmother, the mother, and the next neighbor said, "He didn't say that. Where did that come from?" Well, she started it. But you know the old gossip game, once you tell them, like you're talking about, once it starts spreading. So
Remember the
rumors.
game that we used to play?
Yeah, in
Yeah,
school.
something to one and
pass it down.
By the time it
See
got
what it is when it
around,
gets here?
Yeah,
And the
you play
teacher
it.
teacher would do that, and she'd hold up the card with what the original statement
Yeah.
was. It's the same out there. This actually happened. It's the same thing. It's strange. But rumors. I hear a phone. Oh, it's upstairs. It forwards to my phone.
Going to your phone, probably.
Yeah, it forwarded from the office down here.
Yeah, that's where we got it set up.
It was a spam call. Even the church.
Oh,
gets spam.
really?
Yeah, we get robo spam calls here all the time.
Really?
Yeah. That's why I'm one reason.
Nobody is exempt from a
I was getting a bunch, but I ain't had none in about 5 days. I don't know what's
What'd you
going
do?
on.
Yeah,
I
I was
don't
going
know.
to say, what'd you
Well, I
do?
changed phones. for
Barbara,
one
that's
thing.
why I get so many on my cell phone. I just now realize it comes from the church. Because it forwards to my phone.
Now, Spectrum, well, I will go through that when you get done. Go ahead.
Anyway, Jesus also said, "Wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also." And so when he says this last statement, and you can't be my disciple unless you give up all of your possessions, what he's saying is you can't have a bifocus as a disciple. You can only have one. And if your possessions are your focus, they're going to take first priority. Where your treasure is, your heart is. Can't serve 2 masters. You love one, hate the other. And so this is another nod from him towards being committed to discipleship as a priority. That does not mean you can't be a Christian and have things. Of course you can. But you better own them instead of letting them own you. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean. Because you've seen people that their possessions possess them. Mm-hmm. Control them. I know people like that, and you do too. And that's a sad thing to see that happen. To see people become obsessive that way. Whatever they have, whatever they've accumulated becomes the most important thing. You're not going to take it with you.
You don't think?
No. You know, I saw a thing, we're talking about one manufacturer of watches. I forgot what brand of watch it is. But their commercial is a watch that you treasure for another generation. In other words, you don't own it. You're just taking care of it for the time being. Somebody else is going to get it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be handed down.
Yeah, it's an interesting.
And then there's that song, there's no luggage rack on a hearse either, going out of town.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see me.
I hadn't heard that either.
That was a country song. Oh, yeah.
What is it? What did it say?
This hearse ain't got a country luggage rack or something.
Yeah, ain't got a
that
luggage
was a
rack.
phrase. That wasn't
Trailer hitch. Yeah.
That wasn't the name of it, but I mean that was a phrase in it. That was when it was being sung.
It doesn't have a trailer hitch.
Now, I've seen
I
people,
was
I
trying to
thought
find
that maybe it was going to go with them.
There are people that believe that. Yeah.
I like it when that woman's going to write a check
I know it.
Yeah.
and put in there.
Oh, yeah.
And
That,
she'll cash it.
I was trying to find it. I had it here. I just read that last night. I had not heard that before about that that watch. So it just tells you, that at least from their standpoint, they understand that everything's temporary. So
It must have been a Rolex.
no, it wasn't a Rolex. It was a different brand. I'd never even heard of that brand before. So
Timex.
no, it wasn't a Timex. Now this was a high dollar.
Elgin.
Maybe it's a Mickey Mouse.
Elgin was a high
Oh,
dollar.
here it is. Here it is. You don't really own a Patek Philippe. You just guard it for the next generation.
A what?
What?
Patek Philippe. Patek Philippe.
I've heard of
It's made in some foreign country, but I
That's
forget what.
Mexico.
No,
I think that's
Patek
French.
Philippe must be Indian, maybe, or French.
Right.
Philippines. Isn't that?
Philippe. Philippe. So it's very interesting. At least they understand that. If we don't understand it. So, anyway.
Did it say how much it cost?
No, just says it's very expensive. So, but
Anyway,
Jesus,
you can't take it with you.
Yeah,
that's right. But Jesus is saying
Can't afford it to begin with.
you can't let your possessions take possession of you, because it will destroy you. And you're right, you can't take it with you. You never saw a hearse pulling you haul it. Some people think they're going to take it with him.
And
not
the
going
thing
to.
that bothers me now is everybody thinks you've got to have a job that's, what I want to say. Anyway, there's no more people training much to be air conditioning people.
Technical trades.
Technical trades.
That's right.
What are we going to do?
No status to those jobs.
There's no boy, they are.
Plumbers are hard to find. I'll
But
tell you.
the
But
people
if
that are
you
coming
run
in and getting those
But
jobs
people
are.
don't think so. Is what I mean.
They do.
Yeah, that's right. They don't think it's status
No.
to it. But the people who are coming in and getting those jobs are people that are coming in from foreign countries who are willing to do that kind of work. Or people who've had a midlife career change. They're tired of doing those other things, decide they want to do something different. And sometimes that happens. Some people do have that kind of experience. I've done this for 20 years. This is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so they go into a technical trade or some other kind of work
They
can
don't
be
want
with
to do
people.
the hard labor part.
That's right.
Just like the plumber don't want to crawl up under
Yeah.
a building.
And a snake be under that.
Some years ago, you may have read this. It might have been in the news here because it's so close by. But the doctor who'd been in Bisco for many years, 50 years, retired. He's like 80 years old. And their little medical clinic there, they wondered what we're going to do for a doctor. So they advertised to find a family practice physician that would like to have that practice. And they started getting applications. And they got an application from a doctor in Beverly Hills, California.
Wow.
He flew to North Carolina and interviewed, and they said, why in God's name do you want to leave Beverly Hills and come to Montgomery County, North Carolina?
He didn't know about Montgomery.
No. And he said, I don't care what Montgomery County's like. He said, I'm tired of practicing medicine among artificial people. I want to treat real people. I want to be where people appreciate a physician. And they gave him the
Money
job.
wasn't the biggest issue.
He was a multimillionaire. He didn't need any money. He was a multimillionaire. He didn't need any money. In fact, he put money in. He upgraded that practice, put a lot of money in the building and everything himself because he didn't need the money. But he came there and treated people, and he was a top-notch physician. But the thing was, he got tired of being in a fake world. That's what he said. I'm tired of treating people with fake illnesses, hypochondriacs. I mean, he just went down the list. So you can imagine what those doctors see out there every day, the kind of stuff they have to deal with.
Do you think there's anything that will ever get to go back to the basics? We won't really. The Bible says not really.
I don't know. I think, and I pray there'll be a great revival coming, and maybe then we'll go back to some basic stuff and realize that we become so utterly dependent on technology and these other things that we've lost our human individuality. Because our value is not in what we own or what kind of degrees we have behind our name. It's because we're a child of God. And we value each other as persons, not objects. We love each other as persons, not objects. That's part of the problem. We objectify. So it's terrible. We've run our culture. Everything is suspicious. You know, the Apostle Paul said the early Christian communities greet each other with a hug and a kiss. There wasn't anything sexual about that. That was Christian love. But what have we done? We've reduced it all down to the lowest common denominator, which is filthy and is terrible.
And what happens every night on the news? How many do you hear?
Same thing, all the time. All the time. All the time. And it's in every strata of life. Look at the professionals from the top to the bottom who ruin their lives and throw their lives away for that stuff. It's terrible. Or crimes of passion and that kind of thing. So, but that's the problem. That becomes so important to us, nothing else matters. And then, I don't get my way and pick up a gun and you go shoot the person that left you for somebody else, or you go shoot people that work with you, where you work because you got fired. You blame all them because you got fired. And so we see that kind of thing happen all the time. Irrationality. And secular humanism is given to that kind of irrationality more and more and more and more and more. So we want to blame it on other things. We want to say, well, it's the environment. Did y'all see the thing? I saw it on the news the other day. In fact, I showed it to Barbara, where this child psychologist is saying that you should ask a baby's permission before you change their diaper.
You gotta be kidding.
No, that you should develop a culture of permission before you start doing that. Babies, read their body language. Are they going to look at?
Well, my question
Are you going to leave them in a dirty diaper to get rash?
When the baby is in this stage of saying no, everything is no. So you ask them, "Can I change your diaper?" No.
Yeah.
So what do?
And
do
then
you
you violate
violate
the burn?
Do you violate the baby's wishes, or do you leave them in a dirty diaper?
That's right.
The baby's hungry. Do you feed them or let them go hungry? I mean,
you want
that's
something to eat? Hey, let them starve.
That's exactly right. Yeah. You want some carrots? No.
Don't want
Well,
Want
carrots.
some peaches? No.
Now there was something.
How about some
yesterday
chocolate
I
ice
saw
cream?
that it was
No.
talking about this
vanilla.
DNA deal.
Oh, yeah.
DNA, where you can find out what your child's traits are in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why would you really want to know all of that?
And what their personality
Oh, because we want to manufacture. We want to manufacture our children. Perfection.
Did you see that?
No.
Oh, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that yesterday.
For $100, you can send off for a kit.
But
That might be a.
They both give you, you both
Yeah,
take
but how do
a
you know it's
saliva
for real?
test.
Right.
And then it comes back, your baby will have green eyes. Your baby will
be
be a
blonde.
light sleeper.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Oh,
and
Lord,
I'm
I'm
thinking,
sending
oh,
him back.
well, then that one's not going to make it then. We'll
Which is
send
not
that
gonna
one
be
back.
Which is not really 100% because they don't
No.
know. There's so many different combinations of DNA can happen when two people mate and conceive that
You just
there's
think
no way
about
of being
the